r/AskReddit. Reddit, tell me your glitch in the Matrix stories. I was eating popcorn in front of the TV and dropped a piece. When it should have hit the ground, I heard a faint pop noise. My mom was a stickler about messes, so I looked all over, under the couch, under the TV stand, everywhere, and couldn't find that popcorn. About a year later, I'm watching TV again, and I hear the same faint pop. I look down, and right between my feet is a freshly popped kernel of popcorn. I picked it up, and it was still warm. I'd been sitting there for at least an hour, and there was nobody else in the room. Quantum popcorn. I hope you ate it. There is a tiny popcorn-shaped black hole in your living room. This will probably get buried. When I was around 20, a few years ago, I kept having dreams about a woman with long black hair named Aurora, pronounced Aurora. They were different dreams, but for some reason, her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I would wake up frustrated and confused, trying to Google her name or find out how I was connected to her. After a few months she stopped showing up, and I dismissed it, thinking my brain was just being a scumbag. Fast forward a few years later, Halloween 2009, I'm in the car with a friend, stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and merge onto a highway when I get a phone call from a random number, so I stopped the car but no one answered. There was a person behind me who grew impatient, honked at me, and then swerved in front of me instead of waiting for 2 seconds for me to move. Second they get on the highway, some silver Civic loses control of their wheel and crashes into the car that swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. Turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't have got that phone call. Called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity, rang 3 times, and went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Aurora. Please leave your name and number. Never had goosebumps like that in me life. Called it again the next day because I was that confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers, we get to talking. I tell her my entire story including the dreams I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Weird. Ask her if she has a Facebook to confirm if she is in fact the woman in my dreams. Check her Facebook. Holy duck, it's her. If that's not a glitch in the Matrix then I'm just batshit crazy. You didn't marry her? I was walking through Best Buy one day a couple years ago, and I walked past a rack of books. Sitting on the rack was the last book in the Dark Tower series from Stephen King. The front cover had the picture of Roland in front of the tower with the field of roses behind him. I held the damn book in my hand and looked it over. I remembered being puzzled about why it was in a Best Buy, but whatever. I'd read the first 6 and had been waiting for the last one, but my spending money was low that week. I set it down and decided to come back next week after I got paid to buy it. I went back next week and it wasn't there. It slipped my mind after that for a bit, but about a month later I went to B&N to get my copy. They told me it hadn't come out yet. The release date for the book was 6 months later. I pre-ordered it then. When the book actually came out I went to pick it up. I described the cover out loud to make sure I wasn't crazy. The clerk handed it to me, and there it was exactly as I'd held it in Best Buy. Don't know what happened there, but it is a common market strategy before releasing books to test which cover appeals to the readers the most. The writer/cover artist come up with different covers and place them where the public would be able to view them. Then they track which cover/title grabs the attention of the buyer the most. As a reference, I remember reading about this technique on either Tim Ferriss' website or his book The 4-Hour Work Week. He used it to decide which title/name to give the book. Driving home on a storm day, I see that a side road up to the local golf course is blocked off by flashing barricades. I also spy a Mercedes parked past the barricades with its hazards on. I stop and walk up to the car to see if they need help. I'm an EMT. I shine my light in the back seat to see a man slumped over, apparently asleep. Thinking I've got a few drunks, I move up to the driver window and rap on the glass and shine my light in. The driver is sitting bolt upright, unmoving, staring straight ahead. My window rapping or light doesn't cause him to blink, flinch, or move. I look over, and the passenger is slumped forward onto the dash. This begins to creep me out. I call down to the sheriff station and request a code 2, no lights/sirens, unit up to my location, to help me check them out. Doors are locked. While on the phone I walk back to my truck to get my go bag. As I'm on the phone with dispatch, she asks me to get a license number for the car. Just as a PG&E Power Company cherry picker truck comes rumbling down from up the closed road. I move to go around the truck to get the plate number, and the car is gone. I talked to the driver of the truck, and he said there was a 80-foot tree down across the road and that he didn't think it'd be open for a day or so. So the question is, the hell did the car go? Tree up one way, barricades down the other. It's kept me a bit unsettled when stopping at accident/hazard since then. Edit. Here is the intersection via Google Maps. Barricades were 5 feet in front of the camera and the tree was up around the distant bend. I can't help but imagine you as a small throwaway character in some fantasy novel. The guy who checks to see if the main characters are okay, and then as he turns around they continue to be abducted or whatever it may be. I feel like I'm reading that sort of story from the perspective of a small character. It's cool. My dad had this little toy monkey that he used to call his favorite child and tease me and my siblings with it. Not in a bad way, but it was really frustrating to us, and we spent hours trying to steal it from him. Well anyways, one day we finally got it and threw it into the garbage. After drawing on it and mangling it for a bit, my dad laughed and searched for it a bit but basically figured we had thrown it out and gave up after a week or so. Anyways, a few years later, when I was about 17, I'm walking down the street in Toronto. I don't live in was just visiting friends, and see this little orange object on the side of the road. When I walk over to it, I pick it up and see that it was the exact same duck-eyed monkey. It even had the black Sharpie lines on it from when we drew all over it. I honestly cannot even come up with the chances of that happening, especially considering our garbage is sent to a local dump and is nowhere near Toronto. Edit. I actually took it with me and killed it with fire, just so I knew it wouldn't come back again. It will be back. My dad used to get up around 3 AM every morning for work. Starting at a very early age I would wake up on my own and wander downstairs to see him before he left. One morning when I was about 4 years old, I made it to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the front door was ajar. I opened it up and saw my father in his favorite work shirt making his way down the driveway to his truck in his typical work outfit, plaid shirt and dickies. I swung the door open wide and yelled for him to come back for a hug before he left. He slowly turned around and just stared at me and started walking back towards the house. He was looking so strangely at me that it started to scare me, and I began crying and asking what was wrong. Just as he had almost reached me, a pair of arms encircled me from behind in a bear hug. I turned my head to see my understandably freaked out father staring at his doppelganger in the same outfit. The double took one look at my dad and ran down the driveway. Meanwhile my dad yanked me in the house and locked the door. Weirdest morning ever. Never did quite figure that one out. I would not trust my 4-year-old memory of the event if it wasn't also witnessed by my father. He won't really talk about it these days, but my mom hasn't told me that he called out of work and she spent the day reassuring him he wasn't a nutcases. TL/DR. Dad and I met his equally freaked out doppelganger at 3 AM in our own driveway. I'm late to the party, but this has freaked me out forever. I was a satellite installer, and I was driving between two small towns in North Carolina, Statusville and Taylorsville. It's about a 20-minute drive of a perfectly straight 2-lane road with pretty much nothing but trees on either side. It's the middle of the day and I'm driving along listening to Howard Stern on Sirius when all of a sudden I go from wide awake to falling asleep. Meaning, 1 second I'm normal and a second later my head is drooping down and eyes closing, and what snaps me out of it is my car bounces like I just hit a speed bump, but I'm still in the middle of the road. Howard Stern is still in the same sentence, but my GPS signal says it is lost, and then I hear a calculating, and when it comes back I realize I'm about 12 miles further down the road than I was, and I had missed my turn by 5 miles. My immediate thought, even though I consider myself a level-headed atheist, was that I fell asleep, hit a tree and died, and was now in some weird afterlife. It was such a strong feeling that I drove to the nearest gas station, got out, headed inside with a sweaty palms feeling that the cashier inside was not going to be able to see me. To my relief she did, and I bought a Red Bull. I still think I was hypnotized by the road and drove on some weird autopilot for a while, but losing GPS signal and not missing any of Howard Stern is explainable to me. I even used the Sirius ability to rewind and there was none of the show that I missed. In case you're wondering, my butthole felt fine. Howard Stern usually stays on the same topic for 4 hours. I've related this story before, but here goes. The parallel universe answering machine. This happened about 15 years ago. I called my friend up and he wasn't home, so I left a message on his answering machine. I said, "Hey, it's me, Killer Extremists. Sorry I missed you. Call you later. Bye." And then I hung up and left the house. I made no other calls. Later that day he called back and he says, "Wow, that was quite a message you left. Who was that girl you were talking to?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I wasn't talking to any girl." Well, as it turns out the message didn't end after I said bye. I had to go over to his house and listen to this message a few times. After my initial message that I did leave, as quoted above, there was a slight pause, and it continues on for another 30 to 40 seconds or so with me talking to some girl. It was my voice, but a conversation I never had with a girl whose voice I didn't recognize. You could compare it to the message I know I did leave, and the two voices were indistinguishable. Not just the voice, but, you know, talking mannerisms. It was my voice. Also, references to my occupation and activities were the same. Basically, in this conversation I was talking to this girl about going skiing, but I had to go down to my shop and work on a car first, which totally correlated to me. Then the message just stopped. It was recorded on one of those digital answering machines that recorded the message to a chip, so there was no tape I could have taken and had analyzed, unfortunately. Also, neither I nor my friend had party lines, so that's not an explanation. It was very freaky. I can't explain it. TL. Doctor, I may have connected to an alternate universe through a telephone answering machine. As I was reading this, the lights went out in my room. It's definitely because I barely plugged in my lamp, but still freaked me right the duck out. This is a creepy thread, man. I was in class one day, sitting in a group of 3 people including myself. We were talking, and my friend dropped his pen on the desk. I saw it stall in midair for a second, then drop on his desk. My friend asked, "Did anyone else see that?" All my friends saw it, and it was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. To this day I have no explanation for it. Did you check your ping time? At 12 years of age my mom let me stay in the truck as she went grocery shopping. As I wait I see an old guy walking towards the truck with an indescribable look at me, as if I know too much. He stops 5 feet from the truck, looks at me for a couple seconds and heads back the exact way he came. It was rather traumatic for some reason and very confusing at that age. 5 to 6 years later my dad was showing me home videos of us at Yellowstone at Old Faithful. I noticed the same guy, same look, same clothes, peering at us on camera and at me through the TV. I'm freaked out just telling this. Edit. I didn't expect this story to be such a hit. A few more details. The Yellowstone video was from when I was very young. I'm thinking 1 or 2 years of age. I was in an awesome baby pack on my dad's back. Also, I will try my hardest to find the video. I don't see my parents often, and if I do, I don't think either of them will know where our home videos. A divorce can be a messy and destructive thing. If I do find it, I will definitely post the video and message you all. It's you from the future. This happened to me in 3rd grade, and it scared me so much I started crying and had to go to the office to talk to the principal about it. I was in the hallway for misbehaving, and my neighbor Tad, a year younger than me, came walking out of a class to my right, passed in front of me, and headed down some stairs. We said hi to each other. About 20 seconds later, he walked out of the same class, passed in front of me, and headed down the stairs. I just stared at him, confused and afraid, and he looked back like, "Why the F are you looking at me like that?" I never realized how much it was like Matrix deja vu. Edit. I thought of a second example of this, and as long as this thread is so popular, I may as well share it. A few years after this incident, my sister and I were hanging in the living room, watching TV. We both saw our mom walk through the other room, and through the adjacent hall. Maybe 20 minutes later, she came in from the backyard. My sister and I looked at each other confused, and asked her how she got back outside. She didn't know what we were talking about. She had been outside for hours. No one else was home, of course. Second, Tad sounds like kind of a dick. You should stick with Tab Prime. I used to work in music and toured with this band. The guitarist, Josh, of the band's best friend, Matt, had died a couple years back. He always talked about the kid and he seemed like a great guy. Josh always had this reoccurring dream where Matt was standing on this abandoned street which, supposedly, was metaphorical for purgatory. Josh had all these conversations with Matt in these dreams, and because he had overdosed unexpectedly, he felt like his spirit was not able to move on. At the end of the dreams, Matt would take a bulb from the street light on the street they were standing in the middle of. Josh described these dreams in extreme detail and I could pretty much picture what the street looked like. Fast forward to about 6 months into touring with these guys. They were huge Bright Eyes fans and wanted to stop in Cassadaga, Florida. Bright Eyes singer wrote an album there, and it's a really creepy spiritual medium place. It might be worth noting that 6/7 of the people I was with are all atheists. So we drive into Cassadaga around 2 or 3 AM and drive around. Suddenly, this big black dog comes in the middle of the road and just stops and looks at us. The guys in this band were weird as duck and were saying things like follow the dog. It's trying to show us something. And in my mind, I'm just thinking they are all ducking idiots. We follow this dog for a few blocks as it was walking pretty slowly. All of a sudden, we turn a street and the dog bolts. We try to speed up, but Josh says stop the ducking van. This is it. We are all confused, and he gets out of the van and looks around. This is it. This is the street in my dreams. We hang out for about 15 minutes, and from the way he described the street, from having houses on the left to a park on the right, it was definitely the street. As we get in the van, a street light goes off, and we just drive off. He claims he never had any more dreams about it, as that was closure on everything. Just got crazy goosebumps all over. You've reached the end. You're a star. Destroy the subscribe button for more like that.